Another thing that showed up that I really, really like here is there was a found patent, a Japanese patent by Takara that was issued in 1987 for some cassettes. And it was just more just patent. What they do is a lot of times they come up with ideas, they patent them, and then they decide later on if they're then going to turn it into final product and give it names and flesh out and everything. And it was just I just want to just bring it up because it's another piece of Generation 1 past that never really came about and never really did anything, but it's so cute and clever that I just want to just bring it up. So essentially it was a patent for 2 separate cassettes, one that turns into a horse, and that works with it either. Let's say I'm going to take a guess. It probably would have been Blaster's set. I'm going to say this right now. Probably was an Autobot. One turns into a horse. One turns into a generic robot that had it looks very similar to that of Rewind and Eject because he has the little wings on the back that made up of the weapons, the chrome weapons that would have went on him. But what's cool about it, and this is the cool thing about it, is much like some of the past cassettes that were going on in 87 and 88. Like you had Rain Dance, you had Grand Slam, and they made like they combined to make 2. So, and the same thing with all the Dino cassettes, they did the same thing. This you have the horse, you have the humanoid, they combined to make a Centaurian, a Centaur. Excuse me, a Centaurian. I'm thinking of the toy line, a Centaur,
Centurion.
Yeah, Centurions. Yeah,
Power Extreme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is really cool, though. This is really, really cool, and I'm going to post some really nice photos of these patent images here. And it's such a shame that it never really got past the.
I can guess why this probably didn't.
Why not
come through? So you're looking at the humanoid, and his legs look pretty sturdy. But as we all know, that whenever we get old school cassettes, the legs kind of get all wobbly and floppy.
They're flat. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that look at all the points of articulation on that horse. I don't think this thing would have stood up after a while.
No, totally. Like, I mean, when you
it would have been like, yeah, it's set, and then flop.
I do agree because the horse, for anyone who owns an original Generation 1 Ravage or even Steeljaw, that horse would obviously be very flat, and the legs themselves. I mean, someone like Generation 1 Ravage and Steeljaw, I mean, even the way I display them in my collection, they have to be leaning on somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise those things, they're so flat that they're going to fall over. To put the robot mode on top, which would be top heavy, yeah, this thing probably would have never stood at all. Yeah.
Because the way it looks is just that all you're doing with the humanoid is bending his legs back as if he's kneeling on his knees. Yeah. And you're putting it on top of the horse. That's pretty much it.
It kind of sheathes over the horse. You tuck the horse head in, and then that's it. And then you have just the extra pieces.
So I think they just couldn't get the legs solid enough to hold up the whole toy to really, really appreciate this gimmick. But I mean, it looks really cool. I wish it did come out, but
it's something that
would be the legacy of this toy.
It's the same thing. Like we got Toxin because there was a whole bunch of Headmaster designs that just never came to be, and Toxin was one of those. And so Toxin ended up being created while a lot of the others just never got a third-party release. It's kind of the same thing here, where now we have yet another cassette idea that never saw the light of day, and we have so many of these third-party guys that make all these different cassette sets. It'd be kind of cool that if some third-party company picks this up and decides to do this and gives it a very Generation 1 kind of box looking like a what if, like, hey,
what was the party that made was it accurate sized cassette tapes?
There was a few. There was KFC
for TFCon recently. That recent.
Yeah, I think it was KFC you're referring to.
Those the big chunky ones that happened earlier this year at TFCon.
Ones. Oh, those ones I don't know. Those ones I forget. Yeah, we talked about those.
I could see if they did one and like their horse would be very chunky and like sturdy probably, but getting the what do you call it again? The scale properly, I think would be a bit weird. So maybe they'll make it big, but it'll have to be a pony size comparatively to the humanoid cassette.
Oh yeah. Well, again,
I think that's the conceit they would have to do.
I think that if I was going to market this as a third-party company, what I would do is I would try to aim it more towards the Generation 1 collectors that want something that could put on their Generation 1 shelf in scale with their original Soundwave or Blaster in this case.
Because didn't KFC do one with a gorilla and I think a bat? That was their combiner, I think.
They did a whole bunch of like cassettes that were like KFC's whole MO essentially was they were doing cassettes that were supposed to be masterpiece cassettes, but they also kind of in a way doubled as cassettes for your regular scale figures, because like they did like a gorilla, but the gorilla was more just part of the whole like the slam dance and all of that stuff, you know, because you had Grand Slam and you had Rain Dance, which made Slam Dance, right? And Grand Slam I believe was the tank, and Rain Dance was the jet, and then you had, there's so many different ones, but essentially like they were kind of they were going with that kind of stuff essentially. They were just they were going like with all those different characters. Because
that's what it kind of reminds me. Because I remember they had two. I guess it was the gorilla and I think
the
bat.
It's
that,
not.
That fused
I think
together.
You're talking about Squawk Talk and Beast Box. Beast Box was the gorilla one, and Squawk Talk was not like a bat. It was like a bird, and they too would combine. So it's just, the way that I and they made but for people that like, it's Squawk Talk and Beast Box, and they combined to make Squawk Box, and it's like, named after that TV show for people who live in.
Well, no, Squawk Box is usually another term for like TV, that kind of thing.
Essentially, like,
wasn't it SmackDown and Blackhawk?
Oh, I don't know.
Or is that that's the black repaint kind of thing. I'm just like going through some of these.
Oh, you're talking about the third-party names. Oh, God.
The third-party stuff is what I'm talking about.
I don't pay attention to the third-party names, but I know that there was a ton of repaints of this. And so, like, third-party companies, they could totally grab this mold and do something with it. And, a horse one, there's not many horse Transformers. There's only one, really, from Beast Wars Neo. But, it's something that, and the reason why I bring it up is because, like, repaint potential after the fact. You know what I mean? Like, you could then like do the main paint scheme, however you want to do this, sell it as an original Generation 1 character that never came out, and then you could then do the repaints for as a convention exclusive and making it.
B-Box and Bird Bomber was one of them.
Okay.
And then there's then I think their black repaint was the convention exclusive. Probably.
Yeah, it was. I think it was for Auto Assembly, if I remember correctly. And then we got them at TFCon as leftovers. But yeah, it's an interesting little thing. I just wanted to share that because I found it fascinating. And whenever these old Japanese designs that get lost through history and then they show up of what could have been, we always talk about all the cassettes and we have such fond memories of them. And there's always sometimes the ones that fell between the grills and stuff that would have been. But yeah, pretty cool.